What is up, everybody? It's Anthony Cadenza with the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast and CincyJungle.com. We have a kind of a star-studded week and a giant star joining us, special guest joining us this week on Wednesday's show. Happy to have him. We'll get to him in just a second, but I'm joined as usual by my colleague, John Sheeran, and he's got Randall dressed up to the nines behind him there. John, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. Randall's sporting his Put the Kens in Cannes shirt, and just real quick, shout out to the Bearcats, man.
Oh, yeah.
The perfect week, honestly. From Sunday when the Bengals beat the Steelers to Saturday when the Bengals took care of business in South Bend. I'm riding such an unspeakable high right now. I don't know when I'm going to come down, though.
Yeah, you went to it, didn't you?
I did. Me and our guests saw that history firsthand. That was awesome.
Oh, nice. Well, let's introduce our guest. If you are a Bengals fan, you have to be following this gentleman because he provides excellent coverage on the Cincinnati Bengals. He also does a little Red Sox stuff we found out before we took the air. It is Mike Petraglia, who hosts the Jungle Roar podcast and is part of CLNS Media, covering the Bengals. I said this before, and I'm not blowing smoke, Mike. I'm very excited to have you on here because you're one of the Twitter accounts I monitor very, very closely because you provide great coverage of the Bengals. So how are you?
I'm doing great. Those words mean more to me than I can possibly express. I very much appreciate that. It's just for a little background on myself. I've covered New England sports for the past 28 years. It was quite a blessing, quite a ride, obviously, and being able to cover 6 Super Bowl titles and 4 World Series, unbelievable run of success, not to mention the NBA title and the Stanley Cup thrown in there as well. But it was an unbelievable run. Spent most of my last 15 years covering the Patriots, almost exclusively, and certainly learned a lot from covering Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. And I mean that. I learned a lot about NFL and the way it's run today and the way it operates today. And I'm really excited to bring that experience here to Cincinnati and bring that perspective to a team that I grew up my first 18 years passionately following.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. It's overdue, and I know it's a busy time for you right in the middle of the season. So we are extremely grateful. I guess what I'd like to do, Mike, if you don't mind, and maybe my co-host will throw an audible at you, but I guess we can start with what happened last week, where they're at record-wise and everything, and then kind of jump into what things are looking like this week. I know the Bengals, they were supposed to beat the Jaguars. The Jaguars were 0-3. Right. They're now 0-4. It smelled of a trap game. The Bengals barely got out of there with a win. Yet, even so, getting to 3-1 on the night of the Ring of Honor, it still seems like this was a really important win, primetime win. That's always been an issue for the Bengals. In your mind, in your estimation, and maybe just in reading some of the body language and words from coaching staff, players, how important was this win, even though it was against a down Jaguars team?
Pretty huge. And I think, guys, really what you look at is how they executed under pressure in the second half when they really couldn't afford a mistake. And their franchise player, how he led them, not only executed, but led them on and off the gridiron. I thought Joe Burrow was sensational. There's a reason he's the AFC Offensive Player of the Week and the FedEx Air Player of the Week as well. He had to be nearly perfect, and he was in that second half. That's what impressed me the most. They got big plays when they needed them the most. And, you look at, I brought up the Patriots earlier. In their run of incredible success, there were so many times where they should have lost a game to a lesser opponent and didn't because they made critical plays down the stretch. Their defense came through with a couple of critical turnovers at the right time. We saw that in the Vikings game for the Bengals in week 1 in overtime. We saw it again right before halftime against the Jaguars. Logan Wilson and a host of others stop Trevor Lawrence inches shy of the goal line. If that's 21-0 at the half, I just don't think that's going to be 1981 Turk Schonert coming in and leading the Bengals to a second half victory over Seattle in the opener. That's not what that was. I thought the whole stadium would have been deflated, and it would have been very difficult for the Bengals to come back. But my point here is that the Bengals are starting to develop that characteristic of coming up with big plays when they need it the most. That's what I took really from that second half, and even late in the first half against Jacksonville.
And as someone who's grown up with this team, like, you've seen this scenario before, specifically in this setting when it's under the lights and the entire country's happening. Like, the Bengals before probably don't win that game, regardless about who's at quarterback. Like, what do you think is like just the biggest difference in this Bengals team compared to Bengals teams of the old? Is it just the Joe Burrow factor, or is it something a little bit more?
I think it is primarily the Joe Burrow factor, the expectation that when I'm calling the signals, this is my team, and damn it, we're going to find a way to get it done. And you saw that in NFL films when they mic'd him throughout the game, but certainly you heard him in the second half and right before that final drive. I'm in control now. Give me the ball. We're going to go score. And that has an incredible domino effect on the players he's leading. And CJ Uzomah made that point after the game. He was like, look, when he speaks, we all listen and we follow, and we need that in a quarterback. And I thought it was interesting also today that it was Frank Pollock talking, and he played for Joe Montana, and he didn't hesitate in comparing some of the leadership skills, the aura, he called it, that he sees in Joe Burrow, and saying that he saw the same type of aura in Joe Montana. And that's a big burden to put on the shoulders of Joe Burrow, but I don't think Frank Pollock would have done that if he didn't think that Joe Burrow could handle it.
Mike, I struggled because I was at the game week 1 when the Bengals let go of that big lead and they ended up hanging on to win. This week, a game they should win. There was a lot of factors going against them, short week, a lot of injuries, all that kind of stuff. They still get the job done. But, kind of tying in a little bit to what John was asking you a second ago, that there still seems, at least for those of us who have watched this team for a long time, rooted for this team for a long time, covered this team for a long time, that here we go again, right? When things aren't going so well. And at times you saw Bengals teams kind of adopt that mindset as well over the years. This team kind of, at least from the outside looking in, it seems like they've got something a little different now. It seems like they're kind of trying to get that mindset out of the way. Do you attribute that to not only just Joe Burrow, but just a lot of young guys, a lot of new faces in here, and it seems like there's a lot of confidence for guys on a team that really hasn't won a lot of games under Zach Taylor, but the confidence seems to be there.
They transformed the defense, first of all, in the offseason. And I don't think that was so many people. How much did we hear in the offseason about how the Bengals failed to address the offensive line? There's still too many question marks going into training camp. I was one of them. I'll step up and admit that, for a team that had so many troubles last year with the offensive line, and the offensive line was why, Joe Burrow went down with a season-ending injury in Washington on November 22nd. For all of that talk, nobody talked about the way the defense was transformed, the importing, the signing of the free agent Larry Ogunjobi has transformed the defensive front. You pair him with DJ Reader, there's an aggressiveness now up front. Trey Hendrickson has turned in, at least in the first 4 weeks, to be a terrific complement on the flip side, a bookend with obviously Sam Hubbard. So you put all of those elements together and you start seeing an attitude in that defense of attacking. And that's what Lou Anarumo has used here in the first quarter of the 2021 season. There's an attack mentality. We dictate the terms. The offense is not, in this era of offensive football, isn't going to dictate to us. We're going to try and dictate to them, scare them, show them things that they haven't seen or disguise. And that's one of the big differences I see with the Bengals. And for as many young players, this is what, the 6th or 5th youngest roster in the National Football League, which is great. There are a number of veterans at key positions that I think have helped this team really mature and reach that next level. And I think understand that, hey, what they were in 2020 has nothing to do with what they can be in 2021. There's none of this, well, we have to give it another year or two. Maybe they're not quite ready for prime time. The hell with that. Those guys in that locker room believe we can go from, if you remember the 1980s, both the 49ers and Bengals in 1980 were 6-10. And the next year, they were both in the Super Bowl. That's what I believe this Bengal team thinks that they have early on this season.
Talking with CLNS Media's Mike Petraglia. He also hosts a Bengals podcast, the Jungle Roar podcast. So definitely check that out. Mike, it's not often that we come to contact with someone who covers the Bengals who also used to cover the Patriots. So we got to take advantage of this while we can. It was Greg Cassell, I believe, who was the first analyst to compared Joe Burrow to Tom Brady. Just in your brief time covering Joe Burrow now in his second season, what are the actual similarities that you can see with Tom Brady? Because you were there at the start of Brady's career before he was like the superstar that he is now. Like, what are the similarities of just him maybe addressing the media or just handling himself and just in practice and stuff like that?
Measuring everything he says very carefully. He loves to make sure that what he is saying is exactly what he's feeling and not say too much. If you watch a Joe Burrow press conference, there is a lot of early young Tom Brady. He smiles a lot. He's comfortable in front of the microphone, but he's not going to tell you a lot. And he's starting to learn the art of talking but saying nothing. That is one thing Tom Brady mastered over the years in New England. But on the field, which is really what fans care about, I presume, the way he reads the defense, he can read it pre-snap. He can dictate the terms of what he's seeing, and he welcomes the pressure. He welcomes that zero blitz that you saw late in the fourth quarter against Jacksonville. Why? Because he knew what he had on the outside. And Joe Burrow wasn't afraid to throw to a tight end instead of a receiver, as the play is usually drawn up in practice. And that ability to adjust on the fly, that is something Tom Brady mastered to a T in New England. He's not afraid of the big situation. Everybody remembers the first Super Bowl that Tom Brady won against the Rams in Super Bowl 36. And everybody recalls what John Madden said, that the Patriots should be playing for overtime. You can't let, a rookie quarterback or a practically rookie quarterback drive down the field with the Super Bowl on the line and expect him, to get him in position to win the game. Well, he said, screw that. I'm going to throw to J.R. Redmond a couple of times. I'm going to find Troy Brown on a dig on the left side and get 21 yards. I'm going to run another play, set the ball up in the middle of the field, clock the ball, and kick the winning field goal. He was not afraid of that big moment. I feel exactly the same way about Joe Burrow. He was not, even though it's Jacksonville, and I grant you it's the fourth week of the season, not the Super Bowl, but he was not afraid of that big moment. He wasn't afraid of killing the last 5.5 minutes of that game on Thursday night. He did it perfectly, like Brady did throughout his career. And those are just some of the characteristics I see that I can understand why people see some of Tom Brady in a young Joe Burrow.
Mike, I'm going to kind of give you a two-pronged question here, because there was a question in our live chat that also ties into my next one, and I think it segues nicely off of what you were just saying before we kind of transition into injuries, Packers outlook, all that kind of stuff. Stuart Monty here in our live YouTube says, Mike Petraglia, are we missing specific pieces necessary to beat top-tier teams this year? And really the question I had for you in addition to that is, here we are, the Bengals are 3-1. They beat a Minnesota team that took them to overtime by 3 points. And that Minnesota team, I think, is 1-3 right now. They beat the Steelers handily, but they don't look anything like their old selves. They're 1-3,
right.
And they've beaten a now 0-4 Jacksonville team. So kind of tying those two questions in together there, are we looking at contenders or pretenders? And I know this week's going to tell us a lot.
It will.
But as of right now, kind of gut feeling, are we seeing something blossoming into a really special season? Or are you seeing something, hey, it's been exciting, but we may still be a year or two away here from something really special?
Depth. My concern with the Bengals above everything else is what kind of quality depth do they have? If two or three or four starters go down at once. And we saw against Jacksonville, we had no Jesse Bates in there, no Chidobe Awuzie in there, and still they found a way on the back end to improve their defense in the second half and come through with the victory. Brandon Wilson was good enough. We saw that. We saw that Eli Apple in the first 4 weeks, he struggled in the first game against the Vikings. I don't think there's any question about that. He struggled on some tackling techniques, though Lou Anarumo thought he played pretty well in pass coverage. But Eli Apple's a guy that is a serviceable depth option behind either Trey Waynes or Awuzie. I think they have all the pieces at the starters level to compete with anybody in the National Football League. And one reason I feel confident in saying that, again, it comes back to Lou Anarumo, who in his third year as defensive coordinator is showing things we did not see in the first 2 years with the Bengals. He's much more aggressive. He's really executing and designing, engineering this defense, if you will, at a graduate level course. You know, he talked in training camp about his guy. One of the things he was impressed with his defensive unit is of the intelligence of his players to play at a level much beyond the 100 or 200 level courses. He thought his team was capable, his players were able to play at a graduate level, and that meant a lot to him because he was going to be able to use them in different roles.
That is actually a really cool and unique analogy that I've never even really thought about before. But just on that subject with the defense, because that is primarily where the majority of these offseason additions from the last two off seasons have kind of all formulated at. And just in your estimation, just through 4 weeks now, who has been, in your mind, the most impactful new addition on that defensive side of the ball?
Well, I would have to say it's Larry Ogunjobi. I mean, I think he's been the most disruptive at the line of scrimmage. He's really allowed the pass rush to get to the quarterback much more than it did last year. I mean, I think they're 3 sacks shy of their entire total of 2021 already. I think they had 19 or 17, something like that. And I think they have 14 already through 4 games. They're much more aggressive. So I'd say that addition right there has been big. He's not new, but Logan Wilson is playing like a new player. I mean, Logan Wilson, if he keeps doing what he's doing, is going to garner attention around the National Football League from pundits as one of the breakthrough linebackers in the National Football League this year. He is playing like a new player, although, you know, he's in his second year. And I'd say, you know, it is still too early to tell how good Chidobe Awuzie is going to be in that secondary. But given the fact that he's an addition, it was critical for them to bring him on board to have the kind of secondary you're going to need to compete against not only Baker Mayfield and obviously Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, but you're going to have Patrick Mahomes later in the year. You're going to have the passing offense of the San Francisco 49ers. You're going to face Justin Herbert. You have a lot of offensive weaponry you're going to have to try and contain and shut down in the second half of the season. And to have a secondary that can cover man-to-man, I think is a big thing in Lou Anarumo's defensive scheme.
Man, a lot of defensive additions. DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson, Larry Ogunjobi. I mean, if you look over the last couple of years, they've completely remade that unit into Anarumo's image. We're talking with Mike Petraglia with CLNS Media and the Jungle Roar podcast. He's at Trags, Trags on Twitter. So go follow him if for some reason I wouldn't know why you wouldn't be following him already, but please go follow him.
Thank you.
Spending a few more minutes, if you're okay with that, Mike. Let's
got all the time in the world to talk Bengals.
You're the man. You're the man. I love it. Transitioning to this week, Bengals. We talked about it before we took the air. It looks like the Bengals are getting a little more healthy this week. T. Higgins back practicing, and Jesse Bates and Ricardo Allen now coming on that IR return. What are we expecting? Should we be expecting most, if not all, of these players that we did not see, these important players that we did not see last week against Jacksonville, suit up this week in a big clash against Green Bay?
To me, it starts with Jesse Bates. Had a neck injury, could have played, would have played had that been, a season implicating game against Jacksonville or a playoff game. Jesse Bates would have played, and Zach Taylor said that last week. This week, all indications are he will definitely be playing. You want the quarterback of your defense, the free safety out there calling things like Jesse Bates knows how to do. He is a leader. He's going to be on the field, and you want that kind of guy out there when Aaron Rodgers is directing things. Obviously, we mentioned him before, but Awuzie coming back, returning from the groin problem. He should be on the field as well. And I'm excited about seeing Awuzie and Trey Waynes together in that secondary. I think that combined with Mike Hilton maybe blitzing off the slot corner occasionally and as a cover corner himself in the slot, I think the Bengals have the potential of having a very good secondary. And then I haven't even included Von Bell, who at times this year, and we saw it against Jacksonville, comes down into the box and plays as an extra linebacker. So there's a lot of things that they're going to have to do and execute at a very high level against Aaron Rodgers. One thing I'll tell you guys that I want to see from Lou Anarumo is post-snap disguise, meaning, or a delayed blitz, if you will. That's what I want to see this week, because you're not going to beat Aaron Rodgers with straight blitzes or showing something right at snap. You're going to have to wait a second or two, a count or two, and then go. And that's when teams get to Aaron Rodgers. That's when teams get to the best quarterbacks, is when quarterbacks think that they step back in the pocket, have 2 seconds, they're clear, clean, and then you send somebody out of the blue right at them. And even a hurry against Aaron Rodgers can make all the difference in the world.
And on the offensive side of the ball, it seems that like Joe Mixon may or may not play in this game. He was reportedly week to week, but Zach Taylor kind of shut down that report in his Monday press conference. From your estimation, even if Mixon does play, do you think that this is kind of the week where even if he's like less than 100% and he does play, like maybe they pass a little bit more on first and second down in order to keep up with this Green Bay offense?
Well, that's a great point, because I think they don't want to necessarily get into a shootout. Zach Taylor, from the beginning of this season, has placed an emphasis on complementary football. And what that means is let's possess the ball. I mean, last year they lost so many games because their defense got worn out. I mean, they didn't have the players they have this year, but the defense got worn out and the offense couldn't convert on third down, and they weren't able to really control the ball and play complementary football. This year, it's a lot different, I think. And we saw that especially in the second half, where the Bengals put together drives, I think it was, of 9, 10, and 8 plays, at least 65 yards each. That's good complementary football, especially when the pressure was on. And whether or not Joe Mixon is healthy, if he's not playing, you're going to see more passing. You're going to see more Chris Evans. That's really what I think it means. And I'm excited to see, as the season moves along, how they plan to deploy Chris Evans. Because initially it looked like he was just going to be, Geo 2.0, but I think it's a little bit different than that. I think they plan to use him more as a pure pass receiver in certain situations, spread him 5 wide, with an empty backfield, which we saw a lot in the last game against Jacksonville. So there are a lot of different ways they could go if they don't have Joe Mixon.
Mike, I hate to bring kind of negative attention to one single player, but I feel like this is an aspect that could play a critical role in such a tough game like this against Green Bay, and that is Darius Phillips. I was excited at the possibilities with him returning kicks because of the athleticism. You saw the big play capabilities on defense, but the consistency wasn't there, so you're hoping that would have been brought to the return game. And it's been a lot of poor decisions in terms of fair catches on punts that appears that he would have room on. Poor decisions bringing it out of the end zone. I don't know. Is this just kind of a growing pains thing because this hasn't been really something they've asked him to do early in his career, and he's now doing it kind of full time for the first time? Is this something that the coaches are maybe thinking about potentially mixing someone else into those roles? I don't know. I expected more, I guess, and I know it's still early, but I feel like that's maybe an area that would mean a lot this Sunday.
I think it could. If the Bengals got to a stage in the season or in the postseason where a punt return and field position meant everything, or meant a lot, you'd see Tyler Boyd back there. I'm very convinced of that.
Mm.
It's what the Patriots did with Julian Edelman. Bill Belichick was not afraid to, because there was a lot of criticism. What if Edelman gets hurt? And you heard from Bill, it's football. Football players play football. And, I would understand that in that particular situation, but understanding that we're talking about week number 5, the Bengals want to give Darius Phillips every chance to grow. He's very fast. He's just got to learn the instinct of receiving, when to call for a fair catch, when not to take a step forward. The one punt return, it happened in the second half where Phillips lost 10 yards. That could have been a potential killer. If you know the punt I'm talking about, he saw that there were coverage gunners in front of him. And then he spun one way, spun the other, and then he spun himself right into the ground 10 yards behind where he caught the ball. That can't happen. And those are learning moments. I think the sense that I get from Darren Simmons and the coaching staff, and I wanted to ask this question Wednesday, but I didn't get a chance, is, what do they see from Darius Phillips in terms of ways he needs to grow?
Tyler Boyd, Julian Edelman, both quarterbacks before they went to the NFL, and at least in some variation. Yeah. So there you go. So this is going to be the Bengals' third home game of the season. The first two have come down to the literal wire. One was won on the last second of overtime. One was won at the last second of the fourth quarter. Packers entered this game as 3-point favorites on the road, which means they should be 6-point favorites at home. Is this going to be just another one of those games where it just kind of goes into the end, or is this going to be the time where the Bengals actually take care of business early at home?
So I don't know if they're going to take care of business early. I think they feel they need to. Joe Burrow said that on Wednesday, that if we start like we did against Jacksonville, we'll be down 21-0 before we know what hit us. And they don't want that to happen, obviously. They don't want that to happen ever, obviously. Right. But they know that they have to get off to a quicker start. The execution has to be better. And Zach Taylor has said this a couple of times in the last couple of days. That first drive against Jacksonville was very good. That's what they want to see coming out of the chute. It just so happened that, the offensive pass interference on Jamar really changed the tenor of that first quarter. The defense couldn't get off the field on the next series for Jacksonville. Jacksonville went down and scored, and it really changed the complexion of that game. That they don't want to have happen against Green Bay. Everybody remembers back in 2013, Bengals jump out to the lead. Green Bay goes up 30-14, and then Andy Dalton has one of his best games, I thought, as a Bengal. That and the Seattle comeback at Paul Brown Stadium. But and the Bengals won that game. The turnover also was a big factor in that game, but the Bengals won at 34-30. They can't do that again. They cannot. Even as good as Joe Burrow is, this Green Bay defense is ranked, I believe, 9th overall and 7th against the run. So they've got to they got to pick their spots, get off to a solid start, not turn the ball over. And they're going to have their home crowd behind them. Yes, there will be a lot of cheeseheads at PBS on Sunday. There's no question about that. But I don't think it will be anything the Bengals haven't seen before. They obviously have seen that with the Steeler fans who come to Cincinnati, with the Browns fans. So the Packer fans being in attendance at Paul Brown Stadium shouldn't change that dynamic too much. I expect the Bengals to take advantage of a beaten up Green Bay defense and win this game by 7 points.
Wow. I was just going to ask you where you were going to go with the prediction. So, wow, I like hearing that. Before we get you out of here, biggest keys for the Bengals in this one to get to that potential win that you just predicted for us here. I don't know. Is it more special teams, great kicks from Evan McPherson and that side of the ball? Is it, I don't know. What do you think?
Okay. Number one thing for me is being better on 3rd and long defense. Get off the field. I mean, 3rd and 2, if Aaron Jones runs for 3, or if A.J. Dillon. By the way, keep an eye on A.J. Dillon. I covered him at Boston College, one of the best downhill runners in the NFL, period. And if you watch that game against Pittsburgh on Sunday, you can see why. Watch out for A.J. Dillon on 3rd and short. But in the 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 8, 9, they got to get off the field. They have not been good. They're ranked 20th in the National Football League in that category. I think they're converting defensively at only like 40%, 3%, something like that. Yeah, that's got to be better. And one part of this defense where you would think they would be good as the 7th overall rated defense in the NFL would be third down. They haven't been. So that's got to improve against Aaron Rodgers on Sunday. Conversely, they've got to be able to convert third downs against Green Bay and keep ahead of the chains. Don't take sacks. Don't turn the ball over. But I think the Bengals have as many weapons as anybody to keep up with Aaron Rodgers, and that's a good sign. That's why I like him at home.
Yeah, and the third down and long thing, if you go back to that Steelers game, they had so many situations where the Steelers were just third and forever, and somehow they got out of it, whether it was a penalty or what have you. So that game could have been even worse than a 14-point win for the Bengals there, or I guess even better, depending on how you're looking at it, which side of the fence you're looking at. Mike, thank you so much for your time. Once again, can you tell our listeners where they can find your stuff, follow you, and all that good stuff?
Trags on Twitter, TRAGS, CLNSmedia.com on the internet, and also on Twitter. Just started this week. The Jungle Roar Pod has its own Twitter page. I'm so proud of that. I was able to manage to link that to my basic Trags Twitter page, but the Jungle Roar at Jungle Roar Pod, all one word.
Well, excellent. We definitely thank you for coming on, and keep up the great work. We've been, like I said, we monitor everything you put out pretty closely, and we're stoked we were able to make this happen. And you came on very quickly after the invitation. So I hope we can make it a somewhat regular thing, depending on your schedule. We'd love to have you back.
Sure. And it's, I meant what I said at the top. It's a thrill and an honor to be representing Houday Nation and covering the Stripes for such a very loyal and deserving fan base. That's not just blowing smoke. It's from the heart. Well,
appreciate it. And like I said, you're doing a killer job. So keep up the awesome work.
You got it.
All right. Thanks for the time, Mike.
You bet.
Mike Petraglia of CLNS Media and the Jungle Roar Pod. Go follow him. Awesome stuff from him, John. Really enjoyed that interview. We've had ESPN's Ben Baby on, and now we've had Mike on here. We've had Lindsey Patterson on, and they are just a great group of people, not only at their jobs, but just really kind and awesome with their time with us.
Yeah, man. This past summer when I was down for Mock Turtle Soup, Mike sat at the table that I was sitting at with Wayne Box Miller as well. So we had a great conversation back then, and the dude knows his stuff, but that's expected when you cover the Patriots for the entire Belichick and Brady regime. You kind of know a thing or two from following those guys.
Man, can you imagine trying to interview Bill? I mean, that job is not.
I'm sure it's easier after 20 years.
Yeah,
you know.
I guess. Oh man, peppering Bill Belichick with questions. That's gotta stink. Well, we've got another special guest coming right down the pike. Just want to remind everybody that you can subscribe to the Orange and Black Insider YouTube channel right below. I believe it's John's by his microphone there. You can click that to subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available, and of course, our show, Orange is the New Black for Mason Zim and Matt Minnick's shows are all on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel, where you can get it on every major podcast streamer. So please subscribe, leave us a review, and we appreciate all of the support. Well, John, we've got another special guest, and every episode we like to talk about our partnership with Symbol, and we try and not, mess up the information, and we try and give good information out about the product to our listeners. But we've got someone joining us now who will ensure that we get the right messaging and every piece of information on Symbol, and a little bit of Packers talk, I think, if he's got time. We've kept him waiting long enough. Kenneth Giles of Symbol. Sorry to keep you waiting, Kenneth. Appreciate you making time for us. How you been, man?
No problem. I appreciate you guys having me on. Excited to talk a little Symbol and a little bit of Packers football. I had to represent.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, there's before we get to some Packers stuff, first of all, thanks for the time. Great to see you again. I think when we last spoke, it was when the partnership first formed, and that was back in the spring. I got to ask you an Aaron Rodgers question a little bit later, but before we do, we've been promoting everything going on with Symbol. There are some new things going on and some new pieces of information for our listeners. I'm going to share my screen in just a second, but if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit more about what's going on and what's new with Symbol.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had an exciting offseason. So we launched, I think, right after the draft or really close to the draft. So we've had a lot going on. We launched college football at the end of the summer. So we added our fourth sport to the market. And tomorrow we're actually launching NHL. So any NHL fans in the audience, that'll be our fifth sport on Symbol. So we're super excited about that. But the reason I wanted to hop on is to talk about our new promo that we're offering Orange and Black Insider listeners. This is actually the first time we are launching it with your guys' network. So we're super excited about it. It's going to be the same promo code OBI. I already saw it in the comments. Promo code OBI. But we're doing a risk-free deposit. So for your listeners that either haven't joined the market yet, or maybe you're a little bit hesitant, want to figure out how it works, unsure about how they'll perform, we are offering a $100 risk-free deposit for 90 days. So you come into the market, use promo code OBI. Whatever deposit you make will be risk-free, meaning at any point in the first 90 days, if you are down money, don't like the market, not for you, you'll be able to withdraw your initial deposit, no questions asked. So you start with $100. For whatever reason, you buy a team, they go down, you only have $80 now, we will refund your entire $100, no questions asked. So we're super excited about offering this to people that want to give Symbol a shot, risk-free, just to see if it's something that they're good at or enjoy.
There's only one thing more exciting about throwing a Benjamin out into the crowd instead of knowing that you can get it back. So this is pretty good news to me.
Yeah, we're pumped about this. So that's one of the things, we've been offering, $10 deposit bonus here. We offered some free subscription stuff here. But one of the biggest feedbacks we've got is, hey, this is a new concept. I want to be able to try it out, right? I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works. So that's where we came up with the risk-free deposit from is, hey, we're so confident in our product that you'll enjoy it, that you'll make money, that we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, try it risk-free, and we'll see what happens.
Well, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from folks that have invested in a number of teams. I think it's mostly been the Bengals that I would assume from our listenership here. I am a bad host. I did not do my homework before I took the air. What is the Bengals current rate at? I think when we first partnered, it was like at 20 or $25 a share. And now I think it's at least doubled and at times have tripled, especially now that they're 3-1 and they had the exciting draft class. Can you tell us what they're at now? Because I think some people made some money on this thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think when we did start, they were around $25 or $30. So right now, Sim Bengals, $54.88. To put that into context, that is 7th on the entire Symbol market.
Wow.
So I think because of your listeners, actually, a lot of the offseason, they were either 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now that NFL is picking back up, we're becoming a more efficient market. More people are in the market. They have dropped to 7th, but they're up there with teams that make a lot of sense to me. They're $1 above the Chargers, which makes sense. 2 young quarterbacks drafted first overall, 6th overall in their class. So that makes sense. They're around the Cowboys-Cardinals share price. So they're in some really good territory, and people are responding to the 3-1 record. And even more importantly, in the Symbol market, it looks like Joe Burrow's the guy, right? And if you're looking at investing in a stock or investing in a share price, what you're looking for is consistency at the quarterback position over the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. And Joe Burrow being, 24 years old, looking like, hey, he's going to be a good quarterback for a long time, that gives a lot of confidence to a share price.
Hey man, my Bearcats just had the biggest game week of their life, and they're still not on the college football market. And when are some Group of 5 teams going to get some love, or do we have to wait until they're in the Big 12?
We're actually, that's a good point. We haven't had a team meeting about them joining the Big 12 yet. When they join the Big 12, they'll be for sure in the college football market. We will be adding more college teams as we go. Not this year, but next offseason we should have some Group of 5. I know there's a lot of hype around BYU, Cincinnati, Coastal Carolina. So we'll be getting some more college football teams here soon.
Well, we've loved this partnership and love to see the growth that your company has made. It's been awesome. So we love working with you guys and appreciate your time, Kenneth. I guess we gotta, before we get you on out of here in just a little bit, I want to ask you about your Packers here. Big game this week, and it's super appropriate on a number of different levels that you're joining us on the program. So first of all, I like I said earlier, I guess I got to ask you about the whole A-Rod thing. That was just a weird saga from since whenever that was, around draft time to all the way up until close to the season. He seems like he's just kind of put it behind him in some way because they are now 3-1. Pretty awful start to the season, but I don't know. What do you make of that whole deal?
It was it's one of those things, right? I always say, or I have this theory, and a lot of people do that, like draft night's the best night for an NFL fan, right? Record 0-0. You have the most, right? Everyone's got a pick. You're excited about your team. Anything can happen. And then 4 hours before the draft, the Packers fan base, their world's shattered, right? You're the most optimistic. You're like, oh, we're 1 or 2 pieces away from the Super Bowl. We made back-to-back NFC championships. We're 1 play away from beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go to the Super Bowl. And now all of a sudden your MVP quarterback doesn't want to play for you anymore, right? So that isn't the most fun experience. With that being said, I think the Packers fan base, at least in my lifetime, has probably been the most spoiled fan base in the world, right? Back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right? So from my perspective, 1 out of every 17, 18 years we'll have a quarterback controversy, and I think we'll be fine with that. But it does look like he's put that behind us, behind him for now at least. The last 3 games, they're averaging the 5th most points in the NFL. They're at right around 31 points per game. I think you can pretty much throw the Saints game out the window. It looks like that was just an anomaly. Rodgers said they needed a kick in the pants, and it looks like they got that. They coming off a 10-point win to the Steelers. Obviously, the thrilling win over the 49ers on Monday. Rodgers is playing really good football. And I honestly think they haven't put together a complete game yet. So they're averaging 30 points per game. And if you had a chance to watch the game last week against the Steelers, Rodgers missed 2 wide open touchdowns that could have put them at 41 points. So I think they're still figuring some stuff out on offense, but it should be a fun matchup with a 3-1 Bengals team this week.
Yeah, and one of the great features on Symbol is that you can look at a 1-year graph, a 3-month graph, a 1-month graph, or a 1-week graph of how the prices are kind of fluctuating. And I'm looking at from April 29th to April 30th on the Sim Packers. It went from $39 to $33 for maybe some Aaron Rodgers type reason. But now I guess they're up to $51 as of October 5th. But I think you said it pretty perfectly. Like this offense now has Devontae Adams back or at full strength. They have Randall Cobb back in the picture per Rodgers' request. It seems like it's just like Rodgers is just playing at his usual self right now. And that's even with a bunch of question marks on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offensive line has probably been the biggest surprise of this team. They are missing 2 all-pro players on the left side of their offensive line, right? They're missing the highest paid left tackle, and Elton Jenkins was an all-pro guard before he moved over to become a Pro Bowl tackle. So they're missing their 2 best offensive linemen, but that's held up really well. And part of that, too, is the way they're structuring their offense this year. Last year, the Packers offense, a lot of play action, a lot of deep shots. They led the NFL in home run plays. This year, or against the Steelers last week, Rodgers had the quickest time to throw from the snap at like 2.1, 2.4 seconds. So they understand that their offensive line isn't where it's going to be in a few weeks. So they're doing a lot of quick hitting stuff. They're doing a lot of shotgun more than they did last year. So that's a kind of an interesting change that they made from a year ago to kind of structure around the offensive line. And then just to touch on, going back to the Rodgers thing, talk about how the symbol market works. When the night that Rodgers says, hey, I don't want to play for the Packers anymore, Sim Packers share price dropped like 15% that night. And you're right, John, it has recovered after their 3-1 start. But that is kind of the downside of the market too, is, hey, if you pick a team and something like that happens, it might not go well.
Talking with Kenneth Giles, the CEO of Symbol, joining us, talking about some new developments in our partnership with them. So go to symbol.app/OBI and use the promo code OBI. That's in the live chats there. Before we get into maybe just your thoughts about this particular game, maybe a prediction from you, etc., I guess, what are your thoughts on Jordan Love? I mean, I think, I know Rodgers is still playing well. He's still one of the top, if not the top quarterback in the league right now. The team's 3-1, and that's just a discussion that's just going to have to wait. But, I mean, it came to a point where it seemed that this team was maybe going to need to play him because Aaron Rodgers was just not known if he was going to come back to Green Bay. So I've heard mixed opinions on him. I don't know, you being a bit closer to the Green Bay Packers and following them, what's your take on Jordan Love thus far?
So the correct answer is no one really knows, right? Like we've seen him play a couple preseason games where not one starter played for the Green Bay Packers and they put Jordan Love in there. Well, that's going to be tough to perform well when you're playing, a first team defense and you have a bunch of backups behind you. So the right answer is no one knows. Like you saying, the rumors coming out of practice, one day it looks like he's got the best arm talent. He's the next Mahomes. He's control of the offense. And then the very next day, he throws 4 picks, looks like he's lost out there. So that's young quarterback stuff, right? You're going to make mistakes, and that's part of the growing experience. So the answer is nobody knows. With that being said, he does have all the talent in the world. He's got a big arm. He can move. He's kind of the new age quarterback where he's not a runner, but he's mobile enough to do the RPO stuff. So I'm optimistic about it. I'm an optimistic Packer fan. Like, hey, you see him make a throw down the sideline when they put him in the Saints game when they were down, 38-3. You see him roll out and throw deep out to the corner over a defender. It's like, okay, he does have the talent to do it. The question is, can he do it consistently moving forward? Now, the interesting part will be what's going to happen after this year. I think most people assume that Rodgers has, written off the Packers, that both teams negotiated an out after this year. So that's what everyone's kind of assuming is going to happen, that Rodgers is gone. Well, what happens if this team makes another NFC championship, or what happens if they make the Super Bowl? Rodgers is a little bit more happy. They extend Adams. Then what happens? And I think the answer is, I don't think it's maybe this is me being a Packers fan, but I don't think it's a written off conclusion that Rodgers is gone after this year, right? If he gets more say in the GM position, right? What if the Packers conceded to him and say, hey, yep, we're going to take your input on player personnel? Then he's going to have the most control out of any quarterback in the NFL. And what better situation is that? So I think it'll be an interesting develop this offseason. But instead of looking at that, I'm hoping for a Super Bowl this year, and we don't even have to worry about
it. Yeah, I think I speak for a lot of Bengals fans when I say that it's definitely preferable if Rodgers stays with Green Bay instead of going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But that's a whole nother thing. Before we get to your prediction on this game, let's give our listeners a little bit of some maybe inside information, or just at least from your perspective. In this entire sim NFL market, aside from the Bengals at 54.88, who is the one team with that at their current share price that you would be the most interested in investing long term?
So this hurts for me to say as a Packers fan, but being an objective, owner of Symbol, knows a lot about the market. I would seriously consider looking at the Sim Bears. Justin Fields had one of the best college careers you can have, right? One of the best seasons. He was the most accurate quarterback coming out of Ohio State. Looked absolutely terrible. Matt Nagy looks like didn't help him. Matt Nagy gives up play calls. He looks a lot better. The key to success in the Symbol market, one of the keys to success, right? There's a lot of different strategies. One of which is looking for win payouts. So you're buying teams that you find value to find win payouts. Another is the share price appreciation, buy low and sell high. And what we've seen in the market so far for a little over a year running it is teams that have young quarterbacks that prove that they can play in this league, they immediately see their share price rise. We saw it with the Sim Bengals last year. We saw it with the Sim Chargers. So I would look at the Sim Bears being they're $42 a share. They're 25th. It looks like 25th in the NFL ranking as far as share price. If Justin Fields turns out that he's the guy moving forward, I could see them going from 25th to 15th or 25th to 12th in the next couple weeks, depending on how he plays the rest of the year. So that's a share price that I would look for if I was able to participate in the market, just because of the upside of the quarterback position, right? The Patriots, there's not as much excitement about Mac Jones. He can be very good, right? But there's not as much like, hey, top level ceiling that Justin Fields is a game changer, right? Zach Wilson's shown that he's struggled. So, Trevor Lawrence has struggled mightily. So if you're looking at a rookie quarterback to invest in, I would probably look at Justin Fields.
So before we get your prediction, we're going to let you talk about briefly again the new developments with the partnership we have going with Symbol, and I want to do that first because I get the feeling I know where your prediction's going to go, and I don't want the listeners to get soured on it.
It's a little different. It's a little different than Mike's. So we'll get to that in a minute.
Well, let's just reiterate, if you could, for us again, some of the new developments in the partnership with Symbol. If our listeners go to symbol.app/OBI and deposit $100.
Yeah, absolutely. So brand new promo code for all the OBI listeners, www.symbol.app/OBI, or just enter the promo code OBI when you make a deposit. It's a $100 risk-free deposit. So in the first 90 days, if you don't like Symbol, if you lose money, just not for you, you can place a withdrawal request and you will get your initial deposit back, no questions asked, even if you're down money. So it's $100, up to $100 risk-free. It can be less than $100. It can be $25, $50, $75, whatever you want. But it is completely risk-free. So this is a great chance. Test the market, learn how it works, buy a team, buy a share of the Sim Bengals, earn a few win payouts if you think they're going to win this Sunday, and just see how you do in the market, right? So if this is something that you're interested in, this is a perfect time to invest because of that risk-free promo code. So again, that's promo code OBI. You guys, push it all the time, so everyone knows that already. But something we're super excited about. So go ahead and give it a try. And then if you're looking for more information about the Symbol Market, you can visit us at Symbol Exchange on Twitter. You can find some information there. Our DMs are open. So if you have any follow-up questions after hearing me speak, feel free to shoot us a DM there. We'll get you. We'll respond to you right away. But again, promo code OBI, great chance to test the market risk-free.
All right, Kenneth, just hit us with it. What do you think is going to happen?
So I think the Packers offense has gotten better and better each week, and I don't see them slowing down. So I think the Packers are going to put up 35-38, which, the Bengals defense has been, I think, impressive this year. I mean, above expectations probably. So I'm going to say Packers 35, Bengals 31. Packers cover the spread -3.5, but the Packers get exposed in the secondary. Jair Alexander is not going to play. Kevin King still in concussion protocol. So it looks like it's going to be Eric Stokes' job on Jamar Chase. So he'll get a welcome to the NFL moment. That should be exciting. They actually faced each other in the SEC last year or 2 years ago. So that should be a pretty exciting matchup. But I think the Packers defense will struggle against Joe Burrow. I think it's going to turn into a track meet, and I think Rodgers will get it done.
Well, we wanted to get your prediction, but maybe some of our listeners want to put in the earplugs for that last part right after the
I'm glad we did the promo code OBI before that.
Exactly. Well, Kenneth, thanks for jumping on, man. Sorry we were a little late getting you on here. We've got two great guests tonight, you being one of them, of course. So thanks for coming on and, of course, informing us about what's going on at Symbol and for our listeners and giving us a little bit of insight on your Packers there, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you guys having me on. This has been such a great partnership going on 6 months, and we're excited to continue it into the fall and next offseason. So excited to be on the show again. I appreciate you guys having me, and appreciate all the work that you guys have done and your audience has done for the Symbol Market, because it has been extremely helpful getting us off the ground. We've grown significantly in the last 6 months, and you guys earn a lot of that credit, just the way you guys are promoting and the way your audience is interacting with us. So we do appreciate it.
Well, appreciate your support of our show and what we do too, man. So take care, enjoy the game this Sunday, and hopefully you enjoy it, but you won't be enjoying it for a particular reason. But hopefully it's an enjoyable game nonetheless.
All right, guys. Good luck to you guys this weekend. Go Packers.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks, Ken.
Good guy. Wow, back to back, John. Back to back. Just fun guess. That was awesome. And very diametric opposite predictions as I kind of guessed would happen, but I don't know. Great guy. When was the last time he was on? I think it was March, April.
Yeah, it was like March, end of March, early April, around that time.
Yeah, great guy.
But if anyone's mad at Ken, like, take your anger to the Symbol Market and put your money where your mouth is.
Go prove him wrong that way. That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to do it. Well, let's give we've got a few minutes left. Let's give our 2 cents and update folks on some things, John, with the Packers game here. Man, I'm jazzed. We've had 2 awesome interviews here, and can't thank either of them enough for their time, both Mike Petraglia and Kenneth Giles here. Let's kind of just update. I guess this is where we can start, John. Update on some injury news. We talked a little bit about it. Here is a little bit that we mentioned earlier. This is an article on CincyJungle.com. Ricardo Allen gets the IR return designation by the Bengals, and the understanding there is, John, that he can't. The team has a number of days in which they can bring him back to the active roster, and even though he's practicing with the team, he does not count against the roster count yet. So I don't know. What are you thinking about him? How soon do you see him coming back here?
Yeah, so he was placed on IR, designated to return right after the final cuts were made and whatnot. So he has a 21-day period in which he can practice with the team without counting against the roster. But you have to think that with Jesse Bates still coming back from that neck injury, they only have 3 safeties on the active roster right now. You have to think that also with them, I think bringing in a new safety and releasing Sean Davis from the practice squad, that Allen's probably going to get elevated as soon as this week. I think Zach Taylor said that this was like the final stage of him coming back. So there is technically no rush, but also there's no one, there are definitely avenues to get him on the roster without making the roster worse. He was in the defense for 21 snaps against the Vikings in week 1. So you have to think that there is a role for him to play against one of the best passing offenses in the game. So expect Allen to make his Bengals debut this week.
I would assume so as well. That was kind of my thinking, and he had a good PFF score in that first week. I think he was one of the tops, if not the top rated guy there on their defense. So, and then just all of a sudden after that game, it's like, oh, he's got a leg injury and a hand injury, and he's going to be out for a while. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So let's share this is on Cincy Jungle as well, the injury report. Some good news for the Bengals, as we shared earlier with Mike Petraglia. I'm of the mindset that I think most, if not all, of the important players we did not see on Thursday night. I think the short week played a major role in that. As Mike said, Jesse Bates probably could have gone, but seeing as how this wasn't a do or die type of situation against the Jaguars, they said heal that up. And of course, you never want to mess with any kind of head or neck injuries anyway. But John, on Wednesday, T. Higgins and Jesse Bates returned to practice, and this is an article you put up on Cincy Jungle.
Yes, so there were 4 opening day starters that missed the Jaguars game, and 3 of them did practice on Wednesday. The only one who did not was Xavier Su'a-Filo, but Zach Taylor has already said that Jackson Carman will start at right guard for the 3rd straight game. So the good news on that front, even though Awuzie and Higgins were technically limited, there is still obviously optimism that both of those guys will make their returns. That's going to be huge because the Bengals offense is better with T. Higgins out there instead of the platoon of Auden Tate, Trenton Irwin, and Mike Thomas. And, Brandon Wilson did his job against the Jaguars, but again, against Aaron Rodgers, you want all hands on deck on your defense, especially in the secondary. Also, Trey Hopkins missed practice with is listed with the knee injury, that the torn ACL from last season, but it was a scheduled veterans rest day, so nothing to be concerned with that.
Yeah, so it's great to see Awuzie back in a limited basis, Higgins back in a limited basis, Ogunjobi back after he had an injury last week, and then of course Bates getting full practice in there. You got to like all that, but the big one that sticks out for the Bengals is Joe Mixon, and we'll talk in just a second, but after we get to the Green Bay side of things, we'll talk about the impact potentially of him missing this game here. So here are the Packers and their injury report there. You see the big ones here seem to be at the cornerback position. Kevin King was limited. He had been in concussion protocol there. So seeing as how he is limited, that may be a good sign for them. Jair Alexander, he may be looking at missing some time for them. Did not practice with a shoulder injury he suffered last week against the Steelers.
Yeah, so head coach for the Packers, Matt LaFleur, said that regardless of what they do with Alexander in terms of him having surgery on that shoulder or whatever path that it take, he is most likely out for this week, which is obviously huge, and as well as Kevin King coming back from concussion protocol. Also on offensive line, Kenneth mentioned that Elgin Jenkins is still out with an ankle injury. He suffered that, I believe, on Monday Night Football back in week 2. And mind you, he was playing left tackle for David Bakhtiari, who is currently still on the PUP list, and he will miss this game too. So the Packers are on their 3rd left tackle. I don't even know his name. I think his name is like Yash, something like that. And so they have a very inexperienced left tackle. Their left guard is playing pretty well. John Rynham, I believe, is his name. But Josh Myers, the rookie center of Ohio State, he missed practice on Wednesday too, and he's playing next to a not so very good right guard. So unfortunately, a once really good offensive line in front of Aaron Rodgers is really banged up and really inexperienced. And maybe it hasn't been that much of a factor because aside from the Steelers, they haven't played that many good pass rushes. But this is another opportunity for this new look Bengals pass rush to kind of eat and carry this defense. But hopefully they won't have to carry it too much because for the first time this season, hopefully you have all 5 projected starters in the defensive backfield, with Awuzie playing with Trey Waynes for the first time, Jesse Bates getting back out there at safety with Mike Hilton in the slot, and Von Bell at strong safety.
Well, I want to go back to the Mixon situation, and he is, it looks like he may not be suiting up this week. It's Schefter reported that it was week to week. Zach Taylor kind of said that's, I never said that, or that sort of something to that effect. He kind of just squashed that a little bit. But if Mixon can't go, what do you think the Bengals plan of, because they've been really still balanced on offense. Obviously, Burrow had to throw a little bit more this last week as opposed to Mixon running the ball, but they've really tried to get that balance, get a run game going. And for the most part, they've had at least a steady run game going. If he can't go, what's the plan of attack here? I mean, what is it? Heavy dose of Pirine and Evans? Is it just, hey, we're going to maybe do a little bit more short controlled passing with Joe Burrow? What would you do? And what do you think the Bengals do if Mixon can't go?
I understand what Trags was saying earlier about the desire to be balanced and to be complementary, but at the same time, you're inspiring no confidence if you roll out Samaje Perine wide zone runs on 2nd and 8, like you have been doing with Joe Mixon. This team has just been ultra conservative on early downs, and that was primarily the reason why they had 0 points against a bad Jacksonville Jaguars defense at home for the first 2 quarters. I look at the Packers defense specifically without Jair Alexander, another very exploitable defense. I understand that they want to, still limit the amount of pure true dropbacks that Joe Burrow takes. And that may be important because they have really good pass rushers in Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark, who I guess isn't playing at his level this year, but he's still a really talented guy who can win one-on-one matchups. The Packers defense, specifically the secondary, is exploitable. You're playing without your star running back. It's time to unleash these things. It's time to unleash these concepts earlier in the game so you're not in a situation where you're down 7-0, 10-0 against Aaron Rodgers, because if that happens, it's pretty much a death sentence regardless if you're home or away.
They can't fall down at even at home. They can't fall down 14-0 to this Packers team and to Aaron Rodgers. That just can't happen. And I don't foresee that happening given the amount of players that appear to be coming back. But Mixon's absence will definitely be noted. And I guess I would like to see, it's kind of a weird thing. You may not have Mixon, but it looks like you're going to have Higgins back. And Higgins does a lot of, middle of the field work and does a lot of different things to help you out in the passing offense. So maybe, that is a little bit of a trade-off based on what we've seen the past couple of weeks. I do think that maybe, as you said in your state your case last week, that, this is probably the week that, especially what we've seen from Joe Burrow and company late in these games, this may be the week that we see that conservative approach on offense kind of start to fade away a little bit. And maybe by necessity, because Mixon could be out of the lineup.
You're coming off an emotional, season impacting win at home on extended rest. You have your number 2 or number 1 in some cases receiver back from a shoulder injury. You're fully healthy on offense aside from your running back, and the defense you're going up against is 20th in expected points added allowed, I believe 19th in success rate allowed, and 20th in passing DVOA allowed on defense. Like, this is a situation where it all kind of aligns up. And I understand the philosophy of wanting to be physical early in the game, but if you can have more success throwing the ball compared to running the ball with your backup, there's no reason why that shouldn't be the game plan out of the gate.
And if you're able to get a lead, I mean, then you can utilize that control running game later in the game, if you potentially have a lead or keep it close. I mean, you're able to do that. If you're able to move the ball through the air or, a number of different ways. But look, what would a win mean? I think we know, based on Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay, the legacy there, and they're 3-1. It's just a little bit of a different mindset based on expectations with this Bengals team. And now they had a near ideal month of September, or near ideal start to their season, being 3-1 and almost 4-0. What does a potential win here mean for the Bengals as they get to 4-1, beating Aaron Rodgers and, obviously other tough games coming down the pike, but from a confidence standpoint, from how it energizes the fan base, all that kind of stuff. What would a win mean, you think, for the Bengals here?
I think it just validates what they feel inside of the locker room right now. They are obviously confident for very righteous reasons, but you go on the internet, you go to ESPN Power Rankings, you go to the Athletic Power Rankings, both of them have the Bengals at 16. No other team below them has the same record as them. They are the worst ranked team above 500 right now, just with the consensus power rankings, and rightfully so. Like, they've come from behind to beat a bad Jacksonville Jaguars team at home. They lost to a terrible Bears team at the time when they weren't starting Justin Fields, and when Justin Fields played, he was awful, and they had to beat the Minnesota Vikings at overtime at home. No one outside of Cincinnati believes that this team is truly for real just yet. But regardless of at home or away, if you beat Aaron Rodgers and how that offense is playing right now, regardless of the circumstances, that validates a lot of what you saw the first 4 weeks of the season, being 4-1 in an AFC North where there's two other teams who are also 3-1 right now. Like, that's huge. And then you enter the next week against a very beatable Detroit Lions team on the road. They have the chance here to springboard this fast start into a fast middle of the season right now, because this is where the schedule gets really tough. And I know I just mentioned the Lions game, but after that, I believe they play the Ravens. They play the Browns soon after that. They play potentially a surging Jets team. So it's going to be a lot of tough games here, and it all gets kind of downhill from here. And this is kind of where it all starts.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, if the Bengals lose this one, it's not going to, destroy their playoff chances or anything like that. But I think we all kind of feel that this is a barometer game, especially for the Bengals. I mean, I think the Packers, we kind of assumed, even with the Aaron Rodgers drama, we kind of assumed that this is kind of where they would be in one form or another, 3-1 atop their division and looking like they're cruising through things. And, now this is kind of like I said, a barometer game for the Bengals. What's the biggest key, or what are the biggest keys or key players to you on the Bengals side of things this week as they host the Packers?
I want to see if CJ Uzomah can keep this hot streak alive. Like that was what I was going to watch for in that game. Like with Higgins out on a short week, I know the Jaguars were kind of prone to being picked on by tight ends. Like when was he going to get involved with the offense with Higgins out? Like, and he obviously proved that to be the case with 2 touchdowns and 95 yards. Apparently the Packers aren't too good at defending tight ends of their own. Does he stay in the offense's plans, or does things kind of go back to how it was in the first 2 weeks when you had both Higgins and Chase out wide with Boyd in the slot? I know that the Bengals would want to prevent this from being a shootout with both teams in the 30s, but that might just be the case. Regardless of how good the Bengals defense is, that's also kind of still in a wait and see situation. Like, there's no reason, if that game was on Sunday instead of Thursday, maybe the defense looks a little bit better, but playing on short rest, like, the defense kind of got exposed against the Jaguars, who had probably the best offensive line that they faced all season. And Trevor Lawrence definitely has the livest arm that they faced all year. Well, no arm is livelier in the NFL, maybe aside from Patrick Mahomes, than Aaron Rodgers. And he's going to test the entirety of 11 players on that defense, even when they're at full strength now. So they're going to have to score points. And, it's up to Chase to keep taking the top off of defenses. It's up to Higgins to kind of reacclimate himself in the offense. And it's up to Zach Taylor himself to kind of steer away from this run-centric early down mindset without your running back there. Adjust and utilize the strengths that you have. Joe Burrow showed you the strengths of this offense in the second half against a bad Jaguars defense. That is what has to happen again against the Packers.
I'm interested kind of in what you said there. I'm interested to see how the wide receiver situation plays out for the Bengals if Higgins does indeed return. Is there going to be someone that, week one, it was kind of Tyler Boyd was a little bit of a forgotten guy. Chase had the big plays, and that kind of continued into week two until Higgins got injured. And then Boyd became a real focal point, was the team leader in catches and receiving yards last week against the Jaguars. So now if you add Higgins back in, what does that look like? Not only from a, possible negative reaction to stats with these wide receivers, but also positive in terms of how Burrow's going to be able to spread the ball around, especially if there is no Joe Mixon in the lineup. So that's something I think I'd be interested in seeing there. T. Higgins obviously coming back is a big weapon. What do you predict here in terms of what's happening? What do you see score wise in this one?
I haven't been very adventurous with my predictions. I've mainly just gone with just the general expectation, and that would lead me to believe that the Packers barely win this game. But I think with the situations and the issues that the Packers are dealing with, specifically with injuries, they have a battered offensive line. They're playing without their best defensive player in Jair Alexander. Like, Jamar Chase has a great matchup. So will T. Higgins. Like, this should be a situation where Joe Burrow and that offense can score a lot of points. And Aaron Rodgers historically does not play his cleanest games against the Bengals. And this is one of the better defenses that the Bengals have had in recent years. A lot of things are pointing to the Bengals kind of surprising the nation this week. And I kind of feel like that's where I want to lean. So I'm going to say the Bengals barely squeak out a win again at home. I don't know if it'll come down to the last second like it has in the first 4 weeks in the first 2 home games, but I'm going to say they barely squeak out a win, like 28-27.
Wow. Okay. I'm feeling you. There are a lot of things that are pulling me in the same direction there, but as of now, I just think that there still needs to be a little bit more growth to be shown, and maybe they do it, and maybe they, end up surprising a lot of people, because a lot of outlets do not have the Bengals winning this game. I haven't really seen any, to be honest with you. I think I would say maybe 31-27 Green Bay. Would not surprise me if the Bengals were, as they get healthy, if the Bengals were to pull off an upset here, or an upset in the eyes of many. But as of now, I'm kind of like, well, I just think we know who the Packers are at this point in time. Even with the A-Rod drama, we've got some form of an idea of who the Bengals are. But these are the games. I feel like we could say this every week, but these are the types of games that if they are going to make the playoffs, if they're going to make deep runs into the playoffs, win their division, all that kind of stuff, you got to start winning these games against the big boys and the big quarterbacks. So I think they can. I'm not wholly confident in that at this point, but they've proven they can win all kinds of different games this year already.
Here's a prediction that I'm more confident in. If the Bengals have a lead of 8 or less and Aaron Rodgers has the ball with more than 20 seconds left on the clock, the Bengals lose.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe by Hail Mary. Isn't he kind of one of the –
Maybe by two
Hail Mary king there. Yeah. Well, let's we've had a jam-packed episode, and by the way, we've got more coming up this week. We've got some fantasy football stuff coming up, and then we've got listener questions live on Friday with Malik Wright joining us from the Right Way Sports Network. Excited to have him joining us. That'll be on Friday afternoon, so stoked on that one here. John, let's drop the mic and get on out of here.
Yeah, I was very happy to talk to Malik on this program. I'm surprised that I met Malik before we had him on this program, but Malik was one of the many people that I met for the first time on Wednesday and Thursday, whether it was at the Flying Pig on Wednesday night with the Locked On meet and greet, or Thursday before that historic Thursday night game at Bengal Jim's tailgate. Anyone that I met for the first time or saw for the first time since COVID happened, thank you so much for coming up to me and interacting with me and, expressing your love for the show. I know a lot of you were wondering where my co-host was. Well, he was stuck out in Los Angeles. So I happily represented OBI for both of those occasions. So anyone listening out there who saw me and met me and talked with me, I just want to say I greatly appreciate your support and your willingness to, listen to us and digest our content. It was awesome meeting and interacting with all of you, and I can't wait to do it again soon, because it should definitely be more of a regular occasion.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome to hear that people like what we're doing, and I appreciate the kind words. I wish I was there. I was hoping I could have made it happen, but twice from SoCal out in Cincinnati in a matter of 3 weeks was a little difficult for me to be able to swing that, but I really wanted to make that happen. I'm hopeful I can get to another home game there soon, and of course we can hang out. I'm also hopeful that I wanted, when I went out for week 1, I was hoping to be able to plan some sort of little, whether it's informal or formal get together type of thing with people, but I just, wasn't there long enough, that sort of thing. So didn't make that happen, but maybe sometime in the future as well. But it sounds like everybody did a lot of cool things at meetups, tailgates, and of course the game itself. I asked Drew Garrison, who joined us on the water cooler chat yesterday, about his experience at the game, and it sounded like that Ring of Honor thing was really cool. I said, I bet it's the first time ever at Paul Brown Stadium at halftime that nobody went to the bathroom, right? I mean, it was just everybody was probably locked into their seats, so it seemed like a really cool thing.
Yeah, man. I'm just glad that they didn't crap the bed at the end, because that would have been a lot of sad plane rides home.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. We joked about that before we took the air. I was like, oh man, if that happened with this whole big thing that was planned, that would have stunk for a lot of people. The only thing I really have, just to kind of add on to that, we're going to be getting out. We have I know we teased it when we did the Charity Fest a handful of weeks ago, but we're going to have some prizes given out to some folks here. So we'll be announcing those in the very near future. We've got like I said, a handful of prize packs and stuff for those who donated to the Charity Fest. And we were able to get quite a bit of money for 3 charities represented for the enshrinees in the Ring of Honor. So very cool. And thank you again to everybody who donated there. John, have a good rest of the week. We'll see you Friday with Malik Wright, but have a good rest of your week, dude.
Yeah, you too. I'll talk to you Friday.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. And again, just a reminder, get this show on our YouTube channel or your favorite audio streamer. Subscribe, leave a review, like, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.